What I've done here is I've got both sides straightened out and done. I've laid it out on the car. Okay, more or less where it's going to go. It doesn't have to be precise for this stage yet. And then I took a piece of, actually I used the crayon that I used to mark tires when I changed them over and just basically traced quickly along the end of it. And the reason I did that is because when this thing comes forward, you see there's a bunch missing there, right? I'm going to grind off the paint, and I just need to go a few inches past this line. I don't need to waste grinder discs up here because that area is going to get cut out anyway. So I just need to grind this area here. The other thing is, if I cut this back to, even just a few inches short, I might be able to get in with a hammer and dolly to fix this without taking the floor where the gas tank mounts up out. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, that's where I'm at now.
What I want to do to grind paint off is just a nice, easy sweep.
Okay, now you can hear me a little better. My mask is off. And you can see this, this shiny bit here, that's actually lead. This thing was bodyworked when lead was still used. You can see the metal. That's metal, that's lead. That's old primer, that's lead. You get the idea. This thing was hit in this corner. And this is before my brother got it, obviously. But yeah, but you saw the motion. It's a nice, easy, smooth sweep. It works better. My favorite is an 8-inch grinder or a 7-inch grinder with 180 grit to take it off. It won't chew up your metal like 36 or 60 grit will. It'll take the paint off. Unfortunately, my compressor, you need a pretty big compressor to handle a lot of these grinders. And I mean, that grinder was acquired when I was working at a shop that had a full compressor. Mine is just a little, well, it's a 30-gallon compressor, but it just can't handle the volumes that thing requires. That's one of the reasons that when you'll see what decision I made with the paint, you'll see why I made that as well. Anyways, I'm going to keep going on this. I'm going to try and strip this down here and try and get all this down to metal so that I can actually see what bodywork needs to be done. As you can see, it's a couple of days later. I've actually had my kidney stone removed surgically in the interim, and I'm not allowed to do a lot of stuff, so this is the first day I tried to do anything. Just a couple of hours with a grinder. It was an electric grinder with flap discs was the best. I tried using a pneumatic. My compressor cannot handle the air requirements for long-term use of a big grinder, which actually has bearing on the paint as well. I'll get into that a little later, but it has to do with capacity, cubic feet per minute. Anyways, so as you can see on here is smooth, even strokes. The trick is not to remove the paint. The trick is to remove the paint without removing too much of the metal. And I found the 60 grit flap disc on an electric angle grinder. Did that pretty well. It took me a little while, but it's one of the quicker options actually. If you try to sandblast it, for me it's about 2 hours to the nearest sandblaster to drive it, and then I gotta get the thing there. It's a pain. If you got one next door, it might work. You got to worry about heat. This is what worked for me. The next thing I'm going to do, I only ground up to there because that red bit's getting cut out and replaced with this piece, which you saw me, taking the edges off already. The back of this car, whoever did the body work on it, and I'll use the word body work with air quotes, there were places where the filler, and by filler I actually mean lead, was almost ½ an inch thick. Got it out of there, got it down to bare metal. Lots of dents. This thing's been hammered pretty hard. So that confirms my plan, which is to remove the floor underneath. And I can get behind with a dolly. I'm going to hammer and dolly the metal straight, because I'm not putting that much filler back on this thing again. And I mean, I could try and hit it with a slide hammer and do all that stuff, and that is effective when you can't get in there. But if I have the option to get in there, I can do a lot better work with a hammer dolly. So that is the plan. Yeah, so onward and upward. Actually, this is something I did that wasn't on video, because it just was... I've got all these spot welds holding the bottom of the valance on. I have a spot weld cutter, which I didn't use when I was taking this apart and taking the bits off. And the reason I didn't use it then was because I wanted the holes in here, because I got a weld from this side anyway. So I wanted the holes through. It didn't matter. So why waste that? Whereas this, why make the bit dull? So now this one, when the floor comes out, I'm going to have, as you can see, not holes behind there. It's solid. So I've got something to weld this back onto when I put it back together. Taking the floor out because this back is beat to crap. I took off a lot, and I do mean a lot, of filler. So I'm going to get in there with a hammer and dolly, and the easiest way to do that is to come up from underneath, because then I don't have to weld and grind on bits that will be very, very visible. I can weld and grind, and if there's a bad weld or something that's underneath, no one sees it. This area here is probably going to have to get replaced. This is work hardened, and for those of you who don't know a lot about metalwork or bodywork, work hardening happens when have you ever taken a piece of metal and you just bend it back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and then it breaks, right? That's work hardening. The metal gets brittle. Anytime you see sharp edges like this, that's probably brittle. Now there's a couple of ways around that. You can heat the metal, and then you can, that rearranges the molecules, and then you can try and pound it back into place, which I'll probably give a shot to. But I think this is because, look, that's been broken through and cracked. So I'm gonna have to probably replace a little bit of the metal in there, but not too much, I hope. And up here, of course, I think it's going to be more of same. I'm going to have to, because the one thing I will not do is have filler on there that's more than 1 millimeter thick. Filler's okay to kind of level stuff, but when you're wanting to actually fill, if you have to have more than 1 millimeter, which is what, about a 1/25 of an inch, something like that. If you have more than that, then you're not doing your metal work right. You want to get your metal so it's nice and reasonably straight, so that all you're doing is for ripples. What I've done here is I've measured 21 inches from this very corner to a mark here on both sides. Put a mark. This was marked at 22 originally, you can see it. But when I went to mark the other side, it didn't go to 22, so I cut it back to 21 and 21. So the thing was cut on an angle, which is fine. That's where I'm going to cut this. Next, I'm going to measure back 21 inches from there. By the way, these cloth sewing tapes work really well. So I'm going to bring this back to 21 here. I'm going to mark it. And I'm going to do the same on the other side and run the tape there. And I'm going to cut inside of it. I'll probably cut about 20 and a half, just so that there's some overlap, so that when I go to weld this, I can cut them to fit. I'm going to cut further along for the spot welds. I'm going to cut out the spot welds underneath, but I'm not going to remove the material. So that's how that's going to work. Let me start by saying that creeper is a trip hazard, and I was stupid for not taking it and putting it away. That's on me. Don't do that. I know better. I brain farted. Forgot to do it. I can hear you now. Obviously glasses and mask. If you don't wear the mask, that's your choice, but you're gonna have black boogers for like a week. That's my experience. I just, you go to blow your nose and it's like, wow, it's mud. So yeah, you want to be careful with, I wear a mask. You don't have to, but I do. I know I run my grinder, my cutter without the guard. I suppose I should tell you, don't run the grinder without, or the cutter without the guard. I don't know anybody who runs a grinder with a guard. But anyway, so you saw what I did was I cut the length. It's about an inch overlap. That overlap is for a reason. I will not be doing a lock weld. It will be a butt weld. But what I will do is I will be able to lay one over top of the other, cut them both pieces at the same time, so the cut line will exactly match. So I'll leave an overlap. The reason I cut the chunk out was so that I could get in here and get all these spot welds holding this bit on, because I want that out in order to make the shroud fit in. And when I weld it, I'm going to probably weld it up from underneath. I haven't cut the floor out yet. I thought I'd do this first because it was easier, and I'm still in pain from my surgery, so I'm whining a little bit, but the bending over and stuff, it still hurts. So I'm taking it easy, I'm taking it slow. You probably notice a bit of disjointedness from day to day because of different weather out, because I'm only working for like an hour or two a day at the most on this car right now because I'm dealing with pain issues.